And you mentioned like tawakkul. I'm a huge like this it really defines everything that I do in life because I can only do what I'm capable of doing. But there's when you rely on the tawakkul, it really helps you just trust in Allah, right? You're just trusting Him because He knows better than any of us. So understanding that, well, maybe all the projects that I'm doing right now will set me up to do a significant project in those locations, or like in Palestine, where people feel like, oh, this is where you should be working right now.
Hi,
Hey, how's it going?
going great. How are you?
I am doing well, doing well.
Dima, thank you for taking the time to discuss with us. So today we are having a conversation with you in our Ramadan series, where we talk
Mhm.
about all the programs that we have and the partners we have at Zakat. And you, Dima, are based in the US, right?
That's correct.
Can you quickly introduce yourself and also introduce Team Up?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Dima Kasaji. Originally, I'm Palestinian. I was born and raised in Jordan and currently live in the United States. I'm an accountant, a CPA by trade. I'm a principal at a private equity fund administrator. I'm also the co-founder of Team Up, which is a nonprofit organization based in the United States, but we do work internationally. And the focus of Team Up is really empowering people to work together to make a difference in the world. And our focus areas are education, environmental sustainability, and community development as well.
Great. It's quite surprising to see an accountant kind of going into the realm of uh, like international aid and also building something that is fundamentally voluntary based. So, what led you to do that on the side?
So I wouldn't say there's a direct correlation between, what I studied, my profession, and creating a nonprofit organization. It's really more of an internal calling, I would say. I've always felt the importance and the need to give back to communities across the world. I feel very lucky, blessed, privileged, and I do feel it is my actual moral and personal, responsibility to like really give back. So it's something that's always been instilled with me, through my family, obviously through my faith as well. So it's really important. It's something that was always close to me. And I've always given back at smaller scales, right? Like something like giving food to the poor or donating small amounts of money or giving like old clothes. Um, but I got to a point in time where I felt like I want to do more. I want something that's sustainable, that's multi-generational, something that has a bigger impact. And I started looking at different organizations so that I can, whether, fundraise or even volunteer with them. And this was probably back in 2000, maybe 2015, 2016. So I started looking at different organizations online where I can have a big impact. And I came across organizations where you can build homes for people that are in need, but I felt like I wanted to do more, something that can actually help lift communities out of poverty. And I've always been big on education and the importance of education and the impact of education on all communities across the world. So I came across an organization where I decided to volunteer with them, raise money to build a school. And I did do that. And it was a very difficult task to raise the money. At first, I'm like, oh, yeah, I can raise $30,000 alone.
Yeah, yeah,
And
easy.
and very quickly I was humbled by that feeling where I'm like, it's actually really, really hard, And I had a support system and they helped donate money, but it was just very, very difficult. So I started reaching out to friends that I felt would be interested in also partaking a bigger role in it. So they started helping me also fundraise, for the school, and we still hit a lot of roadblocks. We reached probably $10,000 or $15,000, and we're like,
What were
okay,
the roadblocks?
um, just our outreach. I mean, we reached out to family, friends. We did events locally where we did like a bowling event. We did fundraiser events. We did like raffles. But we got to a point where, like, okay, we've exhausted all of our resources. We've even reached
Mhm.
out to our colleagues at work. But we felt like, okay, we've literally reached out to every single person that we know or may know. And a lot of people contributed, but we didn't know what else to do. So we started looking at other people within that same organization that are also fundraising for a similar project. I actually did come across a page where it was a group of gentlemen that were also raising money to also build a school in Senegal, and I wanted to reach out to them. So I reached out to the VP at that organization, basically saying, "Hey, I want to, can we collaborate with this group? I can see based on their fundraising page that they haven't raised money in a while, and we're also having our struggles. So can we join forces?" And there were, due to internal company policies, he couldn't reach out to them directly to help us collaborate. So I ended up reaching out to them, and I'm like, okay, how bad can it be? They'll either say yes or no.
Yeah.
So I reached out to them. I sent them an email basically saying, "Hey, we're raising money for a school to build a school in Senegal. I see you're doing the same. We have our struggles. Feel free to say no. But I think it'll be a great idea if we can collaborate. We can join forces. If we put our money together, we can actually build this school. And if you don't feel comfortable with this idea, totally okay. But maybe we can even exchange ideas. Maybe we've done something that you haven't thought of, and vice versa." And I remember one of them reaching out to me probably like half an hour or an hour later, and they're like, "Are you kidding me? We would love to join forces." And I was like, "Okay,
Mhm,
perfect. Let's do this." So we actually
mhm.
joined our fundraising pages, and we ended up raising the money for the school. And the team traveled to Senegal, actually helped build the foundation of the school. And that same group that were strangers at some point, like just
Yeah,
hours before,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we decided, okay, well, let's do another school with the same organization. So we ended up also raising money and building, and we were able, since we were able to share stories and even like pictures to show people that this is real, like this is the
Mhm.
community that we're actually impacting. We're actually helping build the foundation of the school. So we had more interest than the first round of fundraising. So we went again to Guatemala to build the school. And while we were in Guatemala, five of us decided that, you know what? Why don't we create our own nonprofit organizations where we have full transparency? We can think about all the difficulties that we came across and make it easier for people, whether it's from a web page perspective, fundraising perspective, collaboration perspective, and just the mere thought of two groups that were complete strangers living in different states within the United States, one person living internationally, and now we're actually helping communities across the world, and now we're creating our own organization. So I get emotional when I talk about it because this is really what Team Up is about, is getting people from all around to like really work together to make a true impact in the world.
Mhm. I have so many questions from what
Mhm.
the stories that you've shared here. But before I go into like the deeper stories about that, why the name Team Up? Because it's quite interesting.
Um,
It's an interesting name for
yeah,
an
so
NGO.
it's we there was a whole process. So when we were in Guatemala and coming back, we're like, okay, what's going to be the name? What's the mission? What's the logo? Just thinking of everything. How do we register? So we started thinking of a lot of different names, and I don't recall exactly. I think we came up with a whole list, but one of the things that we kept going back is getting people together. So it's the whole idea of a team coming together. So this is where Team Up really came. It's kind of like, let's team up together so that we can make an impact. And this is what Team Up is really about. It's really teaming up as individuals, organizations, to really come together and work on the same purpose, which is really just giving back and making the world a better place.
Mhm. I'd like to go back, if you would, to your education, like to your family education, I would say, especially because what you said was that there's some things that you grew up with. You grew up giving. You grew up in a sense of that giving back and feeling blessed to give back to the community was something that it was very important to you. When did you realize that it was a duty for you?
So growing up, to as far as I remember, I recall always feeling like we are just blessed to even be alive, to have food on the table, to have a roof on our head, over our head, and it's always been a part of our day-to-day life where if someone is in need, we have to help them. Like this is part of our being here in this world, is that if someone is in need, we should help them. So I've always felt very blessed with the most minimal things in life, where it's like if I have, this cup of water, well, there's millions of people that don't have any water. I can't think about, okay, well, what is it that I don't have? It's more about thinking what I have and how I can give to like really help others. So it's always been something that's a part of me that I learned through my family. We've always given, whether it's like money or food or clothes, or if even if we, we're driving in the street or walking and there's someone that's like, that's homeless or someone that looks like they're in need, like just helping them, giving them whatever we're capable of giving. But it's always been kind of like through family or during Ramadan or like Zakat or at a smaller scale. And it was probably, I would say, I think it was in 2015, 2016. I was already working, and it was just something where I felt like something within me was like, I need to do more. Like, I am genuinely blessed, and I feel like I should do more to give back. And this is when this
Yeah.
whole process started.
And when you said you wanted to give more, you said something that I felt was really interesting, was the sense of giving into a project that was sustainable in the long run. So I have a sense that in our communities, when I'm talking about communities, isn't mainly like Muslim communities, but also Arab
Yeah.
Muslim communities, there's a sense of urgency every time we want to give to something or to a
Mhm.
project or to some, like, it's either an urgency because there's a humanitarian emergency happening, such as wars or natural disasters, or emergency in terms of let's collect the money very quickly because somebody of our, like somebody close to our heart, has passed away and we need to build a well for
Yeah.
that person, for example. So it's really interesting, quite not unique, but quite yeah, rare to see that someone is thinking sustainably.
Mhm.
So could you, in your own view and also in the view of Team Up, what does sustainability mean? And
So
or
for
not, sorry, not sustainability, because that's more like sustainable giving. What does sustainable giving mean?
So sustainable giving, for Team Up, and we were very thoughtful when we decided what is our mission and what is our goal. And we purposely thought about sustainable giving as opposed to crisis and urgent giving. Not that it's not important or it's not equally important, but we wanted to focus on sustainability because this is how you can really collaborate with communities and empower communities to really help themselves. Because if I'm giving you a set amount of money or food or shelter, well, what happens when you run out of the food? What happens when you run out of the money? What happens if something happens to your home that we provided? Are you starting from scratch? And we don't think this is really the right approach. The right approach is giving communities the knowledge, the resources that they actually need so that they can help themselves. With every project that we take on, we ensure that there's a future to it, that there's a successful future to it. We've done projects in terms of education. Obviously, education is multi-generational, but even with education, we're meeting with the community members to help them understand the importance of education, helping the community and elders understand and agree that both girls and boys should go to school in equal numbers. Also looking at it from a collective point of view to make it complete, where we're also doing projects to build schools. We're also looking at, is there access to clean water in the school or within the same area, because they're connected, and this is really important for us because if there's no access to clean water, that's going to prevent children from going to school, and mainly girls actually, because they spend a lot of time fetching for water. They spend hours and hours fetching for water. Also, if there's no clean access to water, um, there's going to be waterborne diseases that's going to prevent them from
Yeah.
going to school. So even when we've done projects with planting trees, and it's funny. I think the first project that we did with planting trees, someone asked, they're like, "Well, there's a lot of trees in the world, right? Like, is this just like to plant trees?" And for us, it wasn't just to plant trees for deforestation, but it's to plant coffee, fruit, nut trees for local farmers. So you're improving their actual livelihood. These are trees that are going to produce, beans and nuts and coffees that they can actually eat, they can consume, they can also sell. When they have a source of income, they can actually send their kids to school, they can buy supplies for their kids. So it's thinking about how can we actually make it sustainable, where when we leave the community or when we're done with the project, it will go on for a long, long time. And the community
Yeah.
feels a sense like we can actually take it from here.
Yeah. Well, how did you, because there's lots of different organizations and projects that do that, but sometimes I feel that we take from the people there, so we take their empowerment from them in a way when they're trying to build whatever or to choose the type of crops that they want to have on their land or whatever. So how do you put like the right balance between the knowledge that you might have or the expertise that you might have, but also their expertise because they know their land, their culture, and their aspiration better than anyone?
Now, this is a great question. So, one of our ways of doing projects is actually connecting with grassroots organizations within the communities that are in need. neither myself nor anyone at Team Up understands the needs of any community across the world unless we actually lived there and we were a part of it. So we at no point would we claim that we understand their needs. So our mission is always to connect with grassroots organizations that actually live there, that are part of the community, that understand the needs of the communities, because there's also cultural aspects of it. So it's not just understanding that a community needs a school, but also understanding that the flexibility needs, the additional issues they're facing, basically their day to day that prevents them from, going to school. Or even if we build a school, what else would they need to make sure that the kids are actually going to school? Again, like building schools is not just building an infrastructure. That
Yeah.
defeats the whole purpose. It's about making sure that the children and the parents of these children and their great grandparents, all feel empowered to understand the importance of education, how it plays an important role in uplifting a community, so that they're encouraging their kids to go to school and making sure that their kids actually go to school. So this is really, really important, for us, to make sure that we
How
understand their
difficult
needs.
how difficult it is to build those relationships with with local partners.
It's had its ups and downs, for sure. Sometimes it takes years, and sometimes it takes months. It really understands if we're aligned in our expectations and our efforts. We've partnered with a local organization in Nepal that's really focused, on a specific community. They provide them with everything sustainable, whether it's like relating to agriculture, relating to sustainable homes, access to clean water. We've spoken to that organization, I would say, over the course of maybe 3 years. And it was a lot of brainstorming and also different schedules and just aligning expectations. And we were kind of going back and forth on different types of projects. But it took a few years to align the projects and making sure that it makes sense for them, it makes sense for us, and we feel like this is the best solution for this community. Like, for example, this is the organization where we've done and have additional projects this year where we're planting trees for the local farmers. Now, no one at Team Up has studied farming. We don't understand agriculture, but this organization does. They understand the farmers. They actually live. They have a camp in that community. They understand their needs. So when we're going there and we're planting coffee trees, for someone like myself that does not have the knowledge or expertise of planting, I would have thought, hey, maybe you're just planting a tree, you water it, and it's going to grow. And it's obviously far beyond that, right? Digging, the width, the depth for it, mixing the animal manure with the soil, the amount of water that you're adding. There's a whole art behind it. Some of these trees require partial shade. So we're actually looking like, is there shade in the area? If there isn't, we have to plant, a native tree that grows within that area.
Yeah.
So it's about making sure that this is a successful project. We're not going there to just plant trees, whether they live or not, and just move on with our life. Because again, that defeats the purpose of why we're doing this. We want to have a true impact. So we make sure that we're partners with organizations that helps us assure that this is going to be a successful, multi-generational project.
But how do you choose, like, because you said, you mentioned a few countries now. You mentioned Nepal, you mentioned obviously Senegal and also Guatemala. I know that you work also in Chad and in Kenya.
Yeah.
That's also the projects that the Zakat Foundation is collaborating with you on. I'm just wondering, there's so many things that can be done. There's so many different projects, especially if you're like, okay, I want to help in education and sustainability and whatever. How do you choose the countries you operate in?
Again, it really depends on. We wish we can do a project in every single part of the world, honestly. Like, that would be our dream. But it's not as easy as, one might think or not think. It's really where the need is based on the opportunity that we're also given, right? Like, I could want to do a project, in Palestine, for example, but how can I actually do a project in Palestine, right? So when we're talking about like Kenya or Nepal, it's because we had the actual opportunity to actually partner with these grassroots organizations where we were able to align our missions and come up with, a project that we want to complete within that community. So we don't have a specific or predefined set of countries that we're giving back. So far, we've done work in Senegal and Guatemala, Chad, Kenya, Ghana, Guinea, Uganda. We've also done a couple of projects locally here in the United States. We do hope that the list of countries does expand. And we also hope that we are able to still go back to some of these communities where we've already completed projects to see how, to look for ways to give more and help them, help even just providing them with the resources, even if it relates to the original project, just making sure they have the true resources and knowledge that's needed to continue on their own. It's also based on people reaching out to us, I mean, through social media or through our website. We've had cases where people reached out to us and said, hey, we love what you're doing. We're very inspired by what you're doing. We want to collaborate. And this is part of what Team Up is also giving just the common folks really the opportunity to also create their own project. So if someone comes up to us and says, hey, I'm from Guinea and I feel like this community really needs a school or a water pump. We'll have this conversation with them. We'll do our due diligence to make sure like, okay, well, what information do we have? Let's do our own internal due diligence to get the information that we need and, working together to kind of bring this project up to life, which is really important. A perfect example of that, we've had Batuli Kamara. She played women's basketball at UConn, and she played professional basketball at in Spain. She actually reached out to us and she said, I really like what you guys are doing. I'm the co-founder. She's the founder of another nonprofit organization called Women and Kids Empowerment. And she said, she's originally from Guinea, and she said, can we collaborate to build a basketball court in Guinea, between two different schools. And that was very interesting. That was probably the first person that reached out to us that wanted to collaborate as opposed to us researching and trying to find others. So it's very meaningful for us. So we started speaking, and obviously just building a basketball court doesn't necessarily align with our mission. So we wanted to see, well, what is the actual benefit of this? So we kind of collaborated our organization with her organization. So we decided, okay, we're going to build this basketball court in the school. She's going to create programs for girls in the school to help them play basketball, to encourage them to do better at school, as well as using the basketball court as kind of a health clinic, periodically, multiple times a year to, make sure that, both women, girls and boys, have the health benefits and needs that they can, that need to be addressed as well. So that was a very exciting project for us. And while we were in country, since we were already going to Guinea and doing a project there, we're like, what can we do more in Guinea? And we're very big also as an organization on providing access to clean water. So we found a village with her help as well that lacked access to clean water. Like people in the community, it was the top of a mountain, people in the community would walk miles to a stream of water that's contaminated, and this is their source of water. So we were able to actually go there and build a water pump for them. And it was just amazing. It's something so simple like water. I think we take water for granted, right? Like we always have water around us. But the community, like this is actually a true source of clean water that's going to help with their livelihood. So, subhanAllah, I feel like the way these projects happen, it's kind of like, we couldn't have planned it any better, honestly.
Yeah. It's great because I was talking with one of the interviews we've had was with a psychologist that is specialized in Islamic psychology, and she was like, there's an element in our life that we really do not understand to the fullest, but that we need to practice every single day, and which is tawakkul, and just like do your best, and then everything is going to come whenever it's going to come by the person that is going to make it happen. And so I feel that the way that you describe that story kind of aligns a lot with that sense of we're here as agents, and we're here as, in Arabic we say sabab in a way, but what comes is we might facilitate it, but what comes is going to come however it's going to come, and we need to accept it with open arms. And that's quite beautiful what you said as well about the basketball court, because in a way when you think of it, it's also something like, I'm going to go, I don't know if I'm going to leave it in the podcast, but I might, because I have a personal beef with the community, okay? And the personal beef with the community is the question why. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Whenever we've had people coming back to us, asking us, why do you do this, but not that? Why do you do this, but not that? and why do you do it that way? And so it's as if there's like a sense of priority into doing good. See what I mean? And I asked you the questions about how do you choose your partners, because you're Palestinian. So
Hmm.
you're from, I'm not Palestinian,
Hmm.
I'm Tunisian. But I'm like hearing it from a Palestinian that says, now today, doing something in Palestine is very difficult, but that does not mean that the only thing I can do today is in Palestine. And so
Exactly.
you're doing things all over the world because obviously Palestine needs help, but also other places need help. And in terms of being complementary, that sense of you're doing something somewhere else does not undermine the work of people that are doing other things. It just like we complete each other in a way. And so I find it quite beautiful the way you explain that collaboration.
Hmm.
Because also in the beginning, you were talking about having all of these people, you know, from different organizations having the same objective, which is building a school. And
Yeah,
it just like having so many different ways of doing it instead of just coming together and doing it at once, you know, is something that I feel we need to we need to learn as a community as a whole. How
absolutely.
did you learn that? How did you learn that collaboration is the answer?
Um, I've always believed that in order to succeed in anything in life, I mean, we're not just individuals. Like we're individuals, but we need others to to really be great and have an impact. So whether it's at school, when you're at school, you're collaborating with your classmates, you're collaborating with your teachers, with your principal, maybe with other schools. In the workforce, you're collaborating with your own team, with other teams, with your managers. This is something that's consistent really, no matter what it is that you're doing. Even in your own household, you're collaborating with your, with your family, whether it's your siblings, your parents, your children. Life is all about collaboration. If you feel like you can do everything in the world alone, very quickly you're going to realize that you're not going to get far.
But
It's
don't
really
you
about.
think this is, excuse me if I'm cutting you, it's just
No,
because
that's
I
okay.
feel like it's really like it's really powerful what you say is that you're not going to go very far if you don't collaborate. Do you think, as someone that is working in the NGOs, this is a disease in the giving world, is that everyone wants to give more than the other, and so there's a sense of in the community there's lots of individualism in a way. Do you feel
Oh
that, or
yeah.
is it?
I do. I definitely do. And I think it is a problem. And, going back to your, the prior topic where people would reach out and say, why here but not there? And I'm always, I've had those questions, and specifically to Palestine, and I'm always answering, well, why there and not here? Why is it why are you defining who has to be prioritized? What's really important to understand is first intent. Intent is really important, and understanding that we all have deep intents. What is my actual intent in this organization? Is it to, oh, I'm just giving back just because it's, cool to give back? Or is it because I actually care about the well-being of others and understanding that everyone in the world needs help equally? It's understanding whether you're going by, your moral way of thinking, your social way of thinking, your spiritual way of thinking. It's everyone that needs help should be given the opportunity to help. And how we help is really based on what we know, the resources we're giving, and the opportunities that we're given. And you mentioned like tawakkul. I'm a huge like this it really defines everything that I do in life because I can only do what I'm capable of doing. But there's when you rely on the tawakkul, it really helps you just trust in Allah, right? Like you're just trusting Him because He knows better than any of us. So understanding that, well, maybe all the projects that I'm doing right now will set me up to do a significant project in those locations, or like in Palestine, where people feel like, oh, this is where you should be working right now. What's interesting, though, is that usually the people that ask those questions are the ones that are not doing anything to give back, right? Like they're not starting their nonprofit organizations. They're not the ones that are traveling there and actually like putting in, whether it's like the time, the effort, the resources, to actually do that. So it's so easy to sit back and judge others. Um, but when you're actually doing it, when you're actually doing what you can do in your own capability to help others in the world, regardless of which country they're from, what color they are, what ethnic background they come from, you truly understand the importance of this, and you truly understand how you can succeed to the extent that you're willing to give, to really give. But if you're limiting your mind, your thoughts to only a specific direction,
Mm-hmm.
it's really tough. And some people do it, right? Like some people are committed. Like there are nonprofits that are committed to specific countries, specific, backgrounds, and that's okay. Like that's okay. I would never judge that. Because if this is your calling, if this is what you feel like you should be doing, this is your role in life, that's amazing for you and I fully support it. But I wouldn't say like, oh, well, you shouldn't give to this group of people. You should give to that group of people. That makes no sense to me, honestly.
Yeah.
To me, I feel obligated to give to anyone that I'm capable of giving to.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I wanted also to ask you is how do you go into a country, and how do you like offer your help all the while giving or encouraging self-sufficiency into this community? Is there like a step by step? Do you have a method? Is it, yeah, how do you put that into practice in a way, like the self-sufficiency and empowerment of communities?
Yeah, no, this is always top of mind. So whenever we decide on a project, we also work on understanding the demographics of the community, their actual needs, making sure that they understand what we're going there to do prior to our arrival, making sure that there's buy-in from the community where, hey, we're coming here to collaborate with you. Like we're not here as a savior. We're here to really collaborate with you, provide you with the resources and tools that you need to get to the next level. But it's important to ensure that the communities want to get to the next level. It's really, really
Yeah, do
important to
they
get a
choose?
buy-in.
Yeah, do they choose also with you the projects? Like for example, if you go and you're like, oh, we think that you need a school, and they're like, no, we don't. We actually need something else. Is
Oh,
there like
yes.
a conversation with them?
Yeah, and this is why this is why we partner with grassroots organizations, because these grassroots organizations are actually located in those communities or nearby these communities, and they're actively talking with the community
Mm,
members. So they understand. They're not telling the community what they need. The community is telling them what they need. The community is telling us what we need. When we went to Nepal to plant trees, it's the local farmers that, that were giving us information about what is their actual need, while we were also giving them new thoughts and ideas, right? Like in Nepal, for example, with the local farmers, they rely heavily on crops that, you can grow like within 6 months, whether it's like tomatoes or like mushrooms, like very quick growing crops, that can yield, quick, fruits or vegetables. Which is great, and they should continue doing that. And we can also provide resources to do that. But it's also thinking ahead. It's about, well, but why not plant, a tree that's going to last for 50, 70, 100 years? So it's not just helping you as a family, it's helping your children, your grandchildren. This is like a multi-generational impact. So you can still get the benefit of these, crops that can yield, fruits, vegetables, or nuts, quickly, but let's make it more sustainable where you have, others. For the schools, it's also about, yeah, they need a school because there actually is no school in the community. So that's clear that there's a need for a school, but it's also going above and beyond in terms of what else is needed other than a school. And this is where we start, making the connection between school and water. The community wouldn't necessarily think about, oh yeah, well, if you're going to build us a school, then you should build us also a water pump or a water well or some kind of a water system. And this is where, based on our experience, other projects that we've done, we're like, oh yeah, there is actually there's a correlation between the two. Or just talking with the community, and where they say, yeah, we would love to have, both boys and girls go to school in equal numbers, but, part of their tradition, it's really the girls that are spending hours per day fetching for water. So you can build a school, but if the girls are not fetching for water, then that's also problematic, right? And we
mm,
can't say, well, we're going to build you the school, but figure it out. Like, you don't need
yeah,
water. Like,
yeah,
we
yeah.
want to come with solutions that actually make sense because, again, we need their buy-in. We need to
Hmm.
make sure that they feel like this is their own. And this is why when we go to the communities, we actually make it a requirement for them to help us actually build this school, to actually take care of the school. Like it's not just us hiring external people to take care of the construction. Us as volunteers and co-founders of Team Up, we're mixing cement. We're carrying really heavy bricks. Our volunteers are as well, but the community is as well. And the community, it's not us giving them instruction on how it needs to be done. I don't know anything about building a school or any kind of a structure, so I rely on experts and I rely on the community. The community knows more than anything else. They understand their natural resources. They understand their soil, and what needs to be done. They understand how frequently it rains. They understand the wind. Um, so it's really nice to interact. Um, we've had different incidents actually where we went to different communities to build schools, and again, we've had the discussions with the community in terms of like, you guys have to actually help us build it. This is a collaboration. This is yours. Like we're just here to kind of get it, rolling, but this is actually yours. You have to maintain it. You have to take care of it. You have to make sure it's actually being used. So when we arrived and with the volunteers, they can see that we're foreigners. We're not from these, locations. So there were cases where the community members would just stand, somewhere in the back or sit in the back and they would just watch us while we're like building or carrying. The first couple of times it was kind of like that's strange. Like we felt kind of offended. Like, no, like this is supposed to be a collaboration. Like why are they not taking it seriously? So we spoke with them to understand like, hey, like, like you're part of this. This is actually yours. We need to make sure that you're helping us build it. And they explained to us that they're just baffled that like we're coming here, like they're not used to foreigners coming and actually building. They said in those communities they're used to foreigners coming in, or if there's like a project that was done, they just come in to kind of take pictures, kind of like spend a day and move on with their life. So they're actually seeing us go in and like we're putting in work. So they were just amazed by it. Like this is new to them. So this is why it's important to also understand the people, right? Like at first impression was like, this is offensive. Like, why are they not helping? Like this is for them. But it's actually, they were just amazed that they're seeing people that are not from that community. They're coming in and willing to do all this work for them. So after we had the conversations with them, the next day they were doing all the work. They were actually there. They got there before us and they kind of were already setting up the tools. So it's really important to understand the culture, to be sensitive to the culture as well, and have these conversations, like have open conversations with them while also respecting barriers as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there's projects where we went, actually, it was I think the project in Guinea where we did the water pump. We had to stop at like the mayor's office on the way to the village every single day to kind of like shake hands and kind of like almost like get his blessing. And again, this is like norm. This is not the norm for us, right? But it's kind of like, okay, like we have to. This is their culture. We have to show respect so that we're actually able to like successfully complete this project. And we want the buy-in, because if we're not showing respect to the elders or the chief or the mayor, or whoever it may be, then maybe the community will feel like they don't feel empowered. They don't feel like they have that kind of like sense of buy-in where it's like, yeah, this is something that's great that we do want to take care of. Um, and all of us at Team Up, we all have full-time jobs. Like we're doing Team Up. Team Up is our passion. This is like our baby outside of work. So this is not something that we studied. This is not something that we've worked in, previously, but so we're learning as we're going as well. And it's been just a very humbling experience to be able to experience that. But what's amazing is the more we do, the more we want to do as well. It's just like being part of the community. We love our volunteer programs because it allows the volunteers to actually commingle with the community they're helping. Like these are real people that we're helping. So even when they come back, it's always a bittersweet feeling. We always feel like we're leaving a part of our heart in those communities, and we genuinely miss them. But the whole power of story, when people come back and they're able, whether it's with their family, friends, community, workplace, sharing the stories, the experiences, the goal is to encourage others to want to do the same. Giving back doesn't have to be by giving money. I mean, giving back could be just smiling at someone. There's so many ways that people can give back and like positively impact others. And the whole goal of Team Up is to get these people to come together and have, a purpose in any way, shape, or form. And we want to be able to facilitate that in a meaningful way.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have people that help you with the, like you said, there's grassroots organizations that are there that help you with the projects and talking with the
Mhm.
community. But how do you get like the nod? Like, yeah, now we need to go to the mayor's office and we need to check his hand before going into the before going and play with cement, you know? How do
Yeah.
you like know like yeah, no, this is a must-have stop, you know?
Yeah, this is from the grassroots
Yeah.
organizations that we work with, or the individuals that we've done projects with that understand, that are from those communities, or at least from that country, that understand the customs.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we would have had we probably would have drove right past it and had
Yeah,
no
yeah,
idea,
yeah.
and it would have caused problems probably. So it's really understand when going to different countries, understanding the culture and being sensitive to it and
Hmm.
respectful of it is really,
Definitely.
really important.
Yeah. How did it end? So the project where the people were on the side and watching you and then they joined in, how was the end of the story when you left? What was the feeling?
Oh my gosh. Yes, they all joined, and it was completely different from them staying, standing on the side, just watching, to them like really helping, going above and beyond. And they helped us throughout the entirety of the project until we were ready to leave. And every time we have like break time, we'll have like tea time, or like we'll like to bring like, basketballs or soccer balls or footballs to kind of just create some kind of like a bonding with the community members, for the young ones and the adults, everyone really in a
Hmm.
community. So it's really spending quality time with them, and they would ask us questions. And obviously, there's language barriers as well. Um, so we typically have, whether it's a translator or if it's someone from the grassroots organization that we're partnering with that understands, both English and the native language of the community. So it's always interesting because they'll ask us a lot of questions about like our life, like what do we do, where do we live, our families, and we're able to ask them the same question. So it almost becomes like a friendship, and
Yeah.
it's really, really sad for both sides, really, when we're ready to leave the community and go back home, because you feel like you're leaving kind of like your family. So we feel sad, they feel sad, as well. But I hope that it creates a sense of hope for them.
Hmm.
Because imagine when you're in like dire need for something and someone that's a complete stranger gives a helping hand. I mean, this creates hope for you, and this is what we want to do for these communities as well. That we see them, we hear them, we want to help them, we want to support them, and they're not alone. And hopefully, when they're seeking education, when they're getting that education, they can also work on themselves to hopefully do the same for others as well, so that this is a continuous cycle.
And I feel that it gives them hope, but I think it also gives a lot of hope to the people that actually also do like and join in and do that. So it's kind of like you're giving, but you're receiving a lot as well because you're
100%.
learning that there's hope, basically, especially in the time like
Yeah.
in the times that we're living. I feel it's really important to kind of find the little spaces in life where things are going good. And I think helping other people is it can be a very selfish act of survival in a way.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's I feel that we're seeing so many catastrophes and obviously there's genocide that are happening. There's
Yeah.
like the far right that is kind of like without going into the details of all of that, but it's as if having those spaces where you give, but you also allow yourself to dream and allow yourself to say that, okay, my time on this earth is going to be spent on something that I can actually do
Mhm.
and that can actually improve the life of others and of my life as well, makes us, in a way, so much more powerful and also so much more indestructible facing
Mhm.
the adversary of people that actually are living through or are actually more powerful the more divided we are.
Mhm.
So so it's really beautiful the work that you're doing. You're also doing, I guess, work in within your own country, so within the US,
Yes.
uh, and doing also work as a European, like not even as a European, as an immigrant Arab living in Switzerland. The US is such a weird place to me, to be very honest with
Explain
you.
more, please.
It's I just feel that there's like it's like there's some type of I just don't understand the mentality, even though, like I speak English, I grew up like
Yeah,
watching US movies and stuff, but there's a sense of complete loss. I feel it as well in Europe, to be very honest with you, but I'm grasping at it within the community, within the Ummah. And that's
mhm,
why I think like projects like Zakat, for example, kind of brings back that sense of you're not alone. You were never alone. You just lost your way. And you need to get back on track and
true.
find the people that are around you that can make things happen. And team up is also, I think, one of the beautiful flowers of that type of thinking where like we are not alone. So let's find people that are like us to build something for other people that are like us that we might not know. You see?
Absolutely.
Um, I think it's quite interesting as well, the type of things that you offer for people to actually go there and to also see that sometimes there's links where we don't think there were links. And
Hmm.
one of the things that you said that for me is absolutely eye-opening is that you can't empower and you can't educate if there's no water. You see what I mean? Like
Yeah.
exactly like you said. But sometimes I'm just like, when there's projects that are actually built within the community, they're just like, oh, they need goats. Let's just buy them goats. And you're just like, okay, but what does that mean? You know? So that thing with water and so the fact that you're there and that you're seeing those connections, except from water and education, which the connection can be understood in quite a simple term. So if you don't have water, you need time to go and fetch water, so you can't go to school. Has there been other correlations or even causations that you were like, goodness gracious, like I've never even thought of that? And obviously that's why it's not working out. It's because there's this missing piece.
So, there's a few. So with the tree planting, so actually, no, let's go back to the school one. So when we're building schools in Kenya, I mean, when you build a school, you can think about like, do I want it to be a four classroom school, six classroom? I mean, you can be creative, right? What we determined based on like research and talking to people from Kenya that understands Kenya is that, for a school to be registered as a public school, it would need to have 8 classrooms. So when we build schools, again, it's like raising money is not easy at all. Hopefully, we get to a place where we're also sustainable from that perspective through funding. But we always start, whenever we're starting a new school build, we start with 4 classrooms. And then as we raise money, we'll add the 4 additional classrooms. But for Kenya now, when we build schools, we make sure that it's going to be, the goal is for it to be an 8 classroom school because the government will then deem it as a public school. And if it's registered as a public school, it'll come with some governmental benefits, like, with like teachers and like supplies, or even, like from a health insurance perspective to the people that are actually registered in the school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's things like that that you don't necessarily think of until you kind of come across it. And it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. And obviously, when we do projects in other locations or other countries, now that's going to be something that we think of. Like, how can we build, like, what's the size of this school that could possibly give us additional benefits to that community? If we didn't know this piece of information, we could have probably built it 7 classrooms and we wouldn't have gotten the benefit of having it registered as a public school. I think another one with the tree planting project, again, it's not just to plant trees. It's really making sure that they're fruitful trees. So with coffee, fruit, and nut trees, and this is why it's really important when we're partnering with grassroots organizations. So the grass organization that we work with, Conscious Impact, so they actually take care, like we plant the seedlings, but they're actually taking care of these seedlings and seeing them to grow for the next 5 years. So they're making sure that there's like the proper, agriculture, proper watering systems, making sure that, the shade trees that are needed for some of the trees are actually growing as well, understanding the soil, understanding the different pesticides and treating them as well. So there's a lot that goes. You're talking about years of support that's being provided to that community, and it wouldn't happen without these types of collaborations. We wouldn't be. We're not. That's not our expertise, right? But collaboration gets us to where we need. We have our expertise. We have our mission. We have our goals. Other organizations have theirs as well, and it's kind of like marrying the two to make sure that it gives the maximum impact to those communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Has there been like like a trend in terms of fundraising? Has there been like projects that were easier to find fundings for compared to others? Do you have and have you seen a change in that in the years that you've been with Tima?
Yeah, I think people are, it's always easier for people to donate to causes that are like schools, like education, water, food, right? But when you go out and you say, hey, I'm raising money to plant trees, if you just leave it at that, people are kind of like, okay, like people are really cutting down trees, like in our backyards, right? Like people,
Mhm.
it's trees, but that's why it's important to explain what is the actual project that you're doing, like what is the actual impact. When people learn more about the project, they're more willing to give because they now understand it, they understand the impact. But in a lot of cases, sometimes you don't have the opportunity to explain to people what the project means. Maybe it's someone bypassing that came across the web page or social media and they didn't really get to see the full story. So we tried to give as much detail about the projects as possible. I know with the basketball court one, it was kind of like I don't like they didn't feel like it was important to donate to build a basketball court because they just think it's a
Like, I
basketball
don't
court for
have
some.
one. Why would they have one? Like,
Right,
it's like,
exactly, exactly. But understanding like the relationship that was built and what the court is actually going to be used for, and that it was going to yield to to education, to scholarships, to health clinics. Those are the things that people are not thinking of. These are things
Mhm,
that it's also our responsibility to make sure that people understand what this project means.
mhm.
Um, so in all ways, I mean,
How did you sell the basketball court? Give me the marketing pitch.
my,
I might need it.
oh my, we'll give you our posts from like Instagram or something. No, I mean, we told the general public that we're collaborating with the Women and Kids Empowerment, and we're building a basketball court between two schools, and this basketball court will facilitate programs through the Wake organization to help girls, specifically girls, to play basketball, encourage them to do better at school, and also provide them with scholarships, and also to facilitate periodic health clinics at the basketball court as well.
Mhm,
And we were able to raise the money, and people were, once they start understanding, it makes more sense to them. But generally, I mean, fundraising is really, really difficult, no matter what it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
And this is why it's been helpful for us with the volunteer programs, because it allows for us to kind of spread our outreach. So we basically reach out to people like, hey, we have upcoming projects this year. We're doing a project in Nepal in May, and this is to plant 500 coffee fruit and nut trees. And we're going to provide a local school with access to clean water. So we're going to install a rain harvesting system as well as a gravity filtration system for the local school. So we're excited about this project. But we actually opened this up for volunteers so people can actually create their own fundraising page. For this project specifically, we're asking volunteers to raise $1,500 individually. That will go 100% to the project cost. And they'll have also the opportunity, if they'd like, to actually travel with us as well and actually be part of the tree planting and the water system. We also have the Kenya project that's upcoming in July of this year as well, and we're going to build a school there. And similar to the Nepal one, we have it open for volunteers. We're asking, volunteers to again create their page on our website to raise $3,000 each. And again, if they'd like to actually travel with us to be part of the actual school build, it'll be amazing. And we like to make our trips meaningful, impactful, and fun at the same time.
Mhm,
It's not easy for someone to decide to go to Nepal or Kenya, right? Like you have to, like, paying for your flight costs, taking time away from whether it's like your family or work or school. Like you're already giving a lot to actually be part of the project. And we're going to locations that, people don't necessarily go to. Like this is not where someone just randomly decides to go on vacation. So we like to make it fun where we can, like in Kenya, we like to take the volunteers to a safari so that they can actually
mhm,
see the wild animals. um, in Nepal, we like to take them kind of like on a tour around, Kathmandu, the capital city, and just see the culture and the history. But it's really fascinating because it's also immersing, in the culture that we're actually
mhm.
like these places, they have so much history, so much beauty, so much depth, and it's nice to actually be a part of that and get a sense of that as well.
Yeah.
So that has helped us with fundraising is creating it because instead of, me and the other four co-founders raising like $30,000 or $40,000, now we're expanding it where people are raising pieces of that. So that's been
That goes
helpful.
back, yeah, that goes back to exactly the same thing as you said within the communities. That goes back to ownership and
Yeah,
empowerment. So take
100%.
your, it's just like if you want to be part of it, you need to be responsible for it as well.
100%.
So, and I think that's something that is quite interesting in the way that when we have money, because Allah gave us the opportunity to have money, um, money is not necessarily a gift, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
I think money is a blessing, but also a test.
Yeah.
And so um, giving money can be as it can be very easy when it comes to just giving it, but it's obviously everything that is around it, the intention, the way you give it, to whom you give it, you're giving it, are you giving it to in a very parsimonious way, so just a little bit, just
Yeah.
enough to be able to kind of go by whatever. So owning part of a project, I think, is a really, really beautiful strategies that
Yeah.
you've done by actually, then it's not charity. Then it's
Exactly.
actually a project, you see. It's
Yeah.
actually, this is mine. And that $3,000 that I'm actually going to raise for Kenya is not, that school in a way becomes part of me. So I'm
Yeah.
going to cherish it even more when I come back.
So
Um, which I think is really great strategy. So bravo to
thank
you
you.
for coming up with it. It's really great. I had a few questions around the term of around autonomy and the your objective when you go into communities and to working on those projects, not necessarily to stay there for years and years and years. You want to build something and then to give that empowerment and sense of ownership to the communities over there. Can you give me an example of maybe a project or a place or a country where you've been and you felt that on in this case my mission is done, like now I can rest and I know that I don't have to come back, this is something that I can close.
yeah. I mean, I think with every project that we've done so far, we have that sense once the project is actually completed. So if we're doing a water pump or a water tower, um, once that water pump, you actually see water coming out of it, clean water, and we do like the comparison between like the river water and that's like brown and the actual water that's crystal clear. This is where we feel like we've done our part. We've provided the resource of the clean water to, the community. And this is where it becomes really important because everything needs to be maintained. Anything that you build, any kind of structure needs to be maintained, right? So it's making them understand that you actually have to take care of this. Like you have to make sure it's maintained. You have to make sure no one is throwing things at it, no one is breaking it. Like this, if you lose this, you're no longer going to have access to clean water. If you lose this, it doesn't mean that we're going to come back and just build another one. So it's making them understand that we're here to do our part of it, but your role as a community is even bigger because now you have to actually maintain it and take care of it. Same with schools, where we feel like the sense of like, oh, we did our part is when the actual school build is completed and we see the kids in their school uniform, like taking a picture for us and for the volunteers in front of the school. And it's such a heartwarming feeling because this is something that they didn't have before. This was
Mm-hmm.
something that was a dream to them at some point or something that's far away from reality. So to see them in their uniform and excited for school is just so fulfilling. For the tree project, seeing the trees grow. So they're not bearing any coffees or fruits yet or nuts. They will in a few years, but actually seeing them grow, seeing the grassroots organization actually being there, being present, helping the local farmers. Now we're going to go back to that same community where we already planted trees last year in May. We're going back this upcoming May. So we'll be able to actually see the local farmers again. And I'm like super thrilled for that because they feel like family. And I want to be able to see like that they're, see them happy. And also, again, have them feel that like we came back and we want to do more. And now we're expanding it from just trees, we're expanding it to providing access to clean water.
Wow.
Um, so every single project that we've done, we've had that sense of kind of like we did what we can do. Now, what's going
Mhm.
to happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or even that's beyond our control, right? Like, this is not something that we can foresee, but at least we can be at ease that we genuinely did our part of it, from providing the resources, from whether it's building the structure or planting the trees or providing the access to clean water, had the discussions with the communities, working closely with the grassroots organizations that are continuously talking to these communities, right? Like, we leave, but those grassroots community organizations stay there. They're based in those locations, so there's constant communication with them and making sure that they're also empowering these communities to continue going.
Mhm. What's your dream for Team Up in the next 10 years?
My dream is for us to have a sustainable source of funding, really, because this is, I think, the most stressful part. We all find excitement in planning and having discussions and collaborating. Fundraising, it's the unknown. We plan, and you have to plan projects ahead of time, right? Like, I can't say, oh, next week we're going to Nepal. Like, it has to be planned months in advance. So we're almost kind of going by, I don't know, hope and faith that we're going to be able to raise the money, because we basically,
Tawakkul again.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, I hope actually we're able to raise it because it's already planned. So I hope we get to a point where we are getting funding, sustainable, continuous funding, where we put in all of our thoughts, energies, and efforts into the projects themselves. Because I think this is where we can have even more impact. Instead of me trying to figure out creative ways of how do I get 5K or something, I can actually spend that time and energy and effort and clear mindset into, okay, what other communities can we impact? Even communities that we have projects planned for. What else can we do to make the project more successful? So there's more that we can do, but what's really preventing us sometimes is the funding. It hasn't been easy at all. So we do hope that people will be able to support.
Funding is always like the most difficult thing, and that's why I think it's for people to actually understand beyond just the act of giving. It's the act of owning and the act of owning this in the long run, and being able to see changes for generations to come. With the Swiss Zakat Foundation, we have set up 3 projects with you, right? Which is, you talked about the projects in Nepal. There's also one in Kenya
Yep.
for, I think Kenya is schools.
It's cool.
And there's a third one in Chad,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
Can you talk more about that one?
Yes, of course. So in Chad, we're building water pumps as well as water towers, and we've been doing this for a few years. And similarly to the other locations, we've also partnered with a grassroots organization that actually wasn't an official nonprofit organization. So they created their nonprofit organization after our collaboration, but they're also based in Chad. And it's interesting. Chad is such an interesting place. I personally haven't gone to Chad, which I really want to, but other team members from Team Up have traveled there. But it's like one of the driest, regions in the world. But there's literally a water source underneath it. So there is a water source. So if you dig, you're gonna get water. So it's the driest country, one of the driest countries in the world. People are lacking access to clean water, but if you just dig, I don't know how many meters down, really depending on the location, there's an infinite access to clean water. So we like doing projects there. There's a great need for it. Um, and again, depending on the community, how large the community is, this is how we determine whether it's going to be water pump or multiple water pumps or a large water tower. So we've done a lot of these projects, and this is a continuous project. Like, this is not reliant on like volunteer programs or volunteers going there. As soon as we have like funding for a water pump or a water tower, we can get it started right away. So this is something that's really important for us as well.
Great. So for anyone that wants to get involved with these projects, you can definitely set up your own page.
Yes.
So we have the pages set up on the Swiss Ticket Foundation website, and people can actually do their own mini team up and
Yes,
actually get
exactly.
into one of those projects and fundraise. And if they want to travel to the countries and help with their like do a little bit of exercise by building schools and stuff, and meeting the people. How is the procedure? Like what is awaited from them? What type of documents? How do they do that?
Yeah, it's actually very easy. So on our website has all the information that's needed. It lists all the current projects we're working on. It lists also prior projects that we worked on. But for the ones that are open to volunteer programs, there's a form that they can fill in, basically saying, that they're interested in this project. And they can simply also just create a page. So if you go to like the Nepal project page, they can click, join a team. They'll join the existing, like the 2025 Nepal project team, and they can create their own page and they can put, their own information there. They can set their fundraising goal, and they'll submit it. We review it on our end, just making sure, like kind of doing our own due diligence as well, especially with volunteers. But we're very hands-on and very quick in determining and making sure that it's a very seamless process. People would also put in like their phone number or email, so we reach out quickly as well, just to make sure that they have all the information that's needed. And their page would be live then. I mean, they can start sharing it on social media or with however way they want to show it. And they can even create like a group page and then have individual fundraising pages within it. We also have very detailed brochures for the projects where we are accepting volunteers. So it talks about the project, like a sample itinerary, basically what are we doing on a day-to-day basis. We even have like a packing list, things to be aware of, things that you shouldn't do. So we provide all the information that's needed for the volunteers, even if there's like certain like vaccinations that you need to have. Like we've gone to places where we needed to have like the yellow fever vaccination.
Yeah.
So we make sure that they have all the information that they can possibly need to get them prepared for traveling with us. We also have multiple information sessions. We had an information session, it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, or late last month. And we talked about basically all the different projects that are taking place this year, how people can volunteer, or if some people don't want to volunteer, they just want to donate. So that's
Yeah.
also an option. If someone wants to donate, I mean, they can just click on the donate button on the webpage, the general donate button, or the specific project donation button. They don't have to create their own page for that unless they want to. Um, and we have like multiple information sessions, throughout the year, and also for sessions specific to the different projects. So we're going to have a session for Nepal in a month, for the volunteers that already signed up, or any volunteers that are still thinking about it. But that's going to be kind of like a month and a half before the actual trip, just to make sure that everyone is good, they understand. But even beyond that, we're continuously talking to our volunteers. So as soon as we see that someone actually has interest, like we love that. We love to see that people want to actually be a part of something that's really impactful. So we try our best to be as accessible as possible, because again, what we're doing with Team Up is all the things that we had difficulties with in prior projects that we've done, we try to find a solution for that through Team Up. So it's being reachable, accessibility, transparency, and just like
Yeah.
really being connected and really teaming up together to have, a
Uh-huh.
powerful impact.
Great, great. I wanted to talk about like one of the last points, also to kind of put it into a context as well, is the fact that at the Swiss Zakat Foundation, obviously there's two sides of our work. There's the Zakat work, which is collecting the 2.5% tax on nisab and redistributing it in Switzerland.
Yeah.
So this money is really, the Zakat money stays in Switzerland for the people that need it in Switzerland. But the sadaqah money on the other side, people on our website can choose to give to different projects, including the projects on that you're working on internationally. So if anyone would like to either just give money as a sadaqah to one of your projects, they can definitely do that through our platform, or through yours. They can build their own projects as well. They can have friends build their own project, and if they want, they can even join you in one of those countries. And at the end of the day, we should never forget that what Allah gave us is an amana, so it's a trust, and we need to take that trust very seriously. Should it be with our time, with our energy, with our intentions. And zakat and sadaqah has been given to us by Allah not as self-soothing tools to feel better about
Yeah.
ourselves, but really as a way to redeem ourselves from the barakah that Allah has given us when we have it, alhamdulillah. So yeah, thank you, Dima, for all of that you've shared. Is there anything that you would like to say, or anything that you'd like to give details on that we didn't have a chance to do it?
I think we covered everything. I mean, this was such a pleasure to have this conversation. And I'm looking forward to, people just being interested in what we're doing. And even if they're just, checking, our website or our projects, if anyone has, any questions or they would like to get more information, definitely feel free to reach out. But no, this is amazing. And at the end of the day, yeah, this is really what it's about. It's being intentional with what we're doing here. It's not just to do something or to do a project. It's really being intentional with the goal of having a true impact for people that are in need, regardless of who they are. And hopefully we'll be able, to empower others to also, do the same, because I do, genuinely feel that we're, morally, socially, and spiritually responsible for doing what we can do in our power to give back, because, if we're blessed with a lot of things, and if we can just give a little bit of that to others that are less fortunate, like I think this is our true obligation in life.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Dima. It was such a great conversation. Thank you.
Likewise.